All right. Well, again, I want to welcome everybody to our presentation today, and I want to introduce our speakers for our house, Insights in Home Renovations. Kirsten Halsan and Katie Schuler are occupational therapists, and Matt Greer is a contractor whose company focuses on adaptive home renovations. We want to thank Kirsten, Katie, and Matt for taking time from their busy schedules to be able to share their experiences and their insights with us today. And what I want to do now is just turn it over to them and let them do their own introductions.
Hi, everybody. My name is Kirsten Halsan, and I'm an occupational therapist. I have advanced certifications in aging in place, as well as care management, or as I like to call it, healthcare coordination. I'm so happy to be here.
Hi, everyone. Matt Greer, Home Care Medical. Very happy to be able to join here. Mike, really appreciate everything you've done to put this together. Really exciting to be able to talk with folks today and to talk about solutions and how contractors and OTs can team up to help people stay in their homes and age in place safely.
And I'm Katie Schuler. I'm also an occupational therapist, and I also have specialties in home modifications. And I love that this is becoming something that's more known about so people can stay in their homes. So I'm so happy you're here with us today. You can next slide, Mike. So before I dive in on content, I just want to give a brief overview of the structure for today so you all know what to expect. Kirsten and I are going to talk about a little bit about the Parkinson's experience, which you all know maybe even more deeply than we do at times, and how that influences home modifications. Then Matt's going to give some ideas and share some pictures of projects he's been involved with that would be relevant for folks and families living with Parkinson's disease in their lives. And then we have more pictures to share for discussion to kind of demonstrate what a good collaborative relationship between an occupational therapist and a contractor might look like, so that you might be able to go out and replicate this in your lives to help make your lives better and make your homes more accessible and comfortable to live in. So Parkinson's has a lot of different experiences that can come along with it. It can have many effects on your endurance or your mobility, and it's different for everyone. Some changes that Parkinson's can cause in one's body might include a shuffling gait or freezing in doorways or over transitions and thresholds. It could contribute to difficulty with stairs. It might also impact your cognition, which might have to do with your ability to pay attention to things or your speed of mental processing or your memory. It could contribute to mood changes, motor planning, some rigidity in your muscles or tremors, bowel and bladder changes, swallowing or speaking problems. It could also contribute to falls. So this is the smattering of things that one might experience. But again, everyone's experience is going to be a little bit unique to them, which is why home solutions should also be unique to your particular situation. But the wonderful thing about living in your home and being able to make changes in your home is that environmental modifications are actually a wonderful way and a powerful tool that you can use to minimize the risk of falls, to make sure you or your loved ones can remain as independent as possible. And this picture is just one example. So here we have a fairly cluttered environment, which we can all relate to probably in our home lives. And then we have the other picture, which is a more picked up, more space to move and mobilize around, which is good to remove fall hazards and tripping hazards. But it's also good if you have cognitive changes because it can make the environment easier to move around in, more easy for you to find the things that you need. So this is just one example of how environmental changes and your Parkinson symptoms might line up so that you would make those types of changes in your home. Next slide. You're muted, Kirsten.
Sorry. All right. So occupational therapy's role in home modifications. A lot of times when people are out thinking they need to make modifications to their homes, they directly contact a contractor to begin the discussion. However, we're going to kind of propose an alternative solution, which is to also incorporate an occupational therapist. Occupational therapists are medically trained to understand the Parkinson's disease progression, including how it affects a person's function and how the environment can help impact function. By understanding each person's unique medical history and personal environment, an occupational therapist can recommend changes to one's environment in order to help individuals achieve their personal goals. These goals can include something as simple as I want to be able to use the toilet safely, or I want to remain in my home until my spouse can no longer take care of me, or I want to be able to remain in my home until end of life. Because occupational therapists understand the Parkinson's progression and the environment, an OT can also recommend immediate changes versus just the long-term changes to support you in your environment. This skill can help, especially when people want to save for more costly home modifications for later on down the road as their disease progresses. And maybe they want to have a time to be able to see how their spouse is able to continue caring for them as their disease continues to progress, because sometimes there just isn't enough caregiver capacity to remain in the home. And doing short-term modifications might be the best fit for this situation. Not all OTs have experience in home modifications, and this requires special training, which Katie is going to get into. Next slide.
So there are a few specialty certifications that an occupational therapist that could support you in this role might have. There are three of them listed here on this slide. CAPS, which is Certified Aging in Place Specialist, which is offered by the National Association of Home Builders. This is something that Kirsten and I both have. The next is Executive Certificate in Home Modifications, which is a course of study through the University of Southern California School of Gerontology. And this specialty focuses on the funding, policy around home modifications. And then the specialty certification in environmental modification is through the American Occupational Therapy Association. So these are some abbreviations behind a provider or practitioner's name that you might seek out to help make sure that if you are engaging with an occupational therapist around specialty or specific home modifications, these are some of the certifications you might look for. And at least the CAPS certification does have a database that's listed by state, which there's some demonstration later on, but that's one of the ways that you can find a provider with these particular specialties, so you get someone who has in-depth knowledge of home modifications. Next slide.
So this is just to give you kind of a background of where can you find an occupational therapist. Occupational therapists work in multiple settings. When choosing the setting that you either one, qualify for, or two, want to go to, will determine the level of expertise that occupational therapists will have with home modifications. Occupational therapists in the outpatient setting they're usually found in the same place where you'd get PT rehab. They're usually generalists, meaning they treat all different types of patients with different diagnoses, not just Parkinson's disease. They're able to assess the home typically via pictures or video recordings. They are not able to go and do a walkthrough typically in your home. They will likely provide recommendations related to equipment like a shower chair, or recommend where to put a grab bar. Outpatient OTs require a doctor's referral. And it's important to note that not all of these therapists are certified aging in place. Occupational therapists in the home health setting are typically also generalists. However, with one caveat, they do understand how to have a comprehensive assessment within the home. Because that's pretty much their whole job, right? They come to your home to provide therapy. Home health requires a doctor's referral, and individuals need to qualify as being homebound, which means that it's extremely taxing for them to leave the home if you're able to leave the home at all. It's important to note that not all occupational therapists working in the home health setting are certified aging in place. Most of the recommendations will also be equipment related or grab bar placement. Some agencies allow for additional visits to create a whole home modification plan. However, that's agency specific. If you want a more comprehensive assessment that involves extensive home modifications, an OT with specialty certifications is the best fit. It is recommended to contact the clinic or agency that you are wanting to go to or qualified to go to ask if they have the occupational therapists that are certified aging in place. And you can use those word salad things that Katie reviewed earlier. Alternatively, there are private practice OTs that are very specialized in home modifications and provide consultation services. They can help collaborate with a contractor from the functional and medical perspective of the individual with Parkinson's disease. However, this is not typically covered under insurance. Next slide.
So let's say you found an occupational therapist that you would like to work with, and we're going to kind of describe the process for working with an occupational therapist. You will have a comprehensive assessment, which sometimes in the medical world gets called an evaluation, which would be in the setting where your therapist is working. So it could be an outpatient clinic, could be in your home if you're receiving home health services, or if it's a private practice occupational therapist, it could be of many places, but likely in your home. This would be taking a look at your medical history. So not just the experience of Parkinson's disease, but also any other medical conditions you might have and how that has impacted your day-to-day life. You know, the things that are easy for you and the things that are challenging, and also an assessment of your environment. So what is the setup of your bathroom? How do you navigate through your home? What is the entrance of your home like? Those are the types of things that would be assessed in that comprehensive assessment. Next slide. Most importantly, the occupational therapist is going to want to know what your goals are. If it's you want to be able to go to the bathroom more safely or remain at home as long as possible, or be able to function with one caregiver instead of two. The goal that you have for your care and for pursuing information about home modifications is the most important thing. So you want a provider who is really going to help support you and focus on that. And I already discussed how they want to see your environment. So they also would then, based on that comprehensive assessment, discuss with you the recommendations in the environment that might help you improve your safety and allow you to function more independently or as independently as you want to function. Next slide.
All right. So As an occupational therapist, I strongly recommend having a comprehensive evaluation like what Katie outlined previously prior to completing extensive home modifications, because you want to make sure the changes made are the right changes for you. I have been involved in home health for over 8 years, and I have unfortunately seen people invest a lot of money into home modifications that may fit their needs immediately. However, 6 months down the road to a year down the road do not meet their needs any longer. So, based on what we've kind of talked about, I wanted to kind of give you guys an idea of what Katie and I look at when we look at an environment and an individual with some kind of concrete examples. If you look in the living room examples, the ones you can see they were designed to not have thresholds between the rooms. This is a great strategy because not only does it help prevent falls if you're walking with a shuffling gait, but it can also reduce the risk of freezing episodes. Both examples have wide passageways to allow for a walker, a U-step, or even eventually a wheelchair, which is great to facilitate remaining safe when maneuvering around your environment as disease progresses and more complex mobility aids are required. You can see in the living room with the light blue paint that there is a glare on the floor. If the person with Parkinson's disease is experiencing hallucinations, this could increase that occurrence, as could areas where there are a lot of shadows. In the room with the pink chair, there's not much contrast color in the room. If the person with Parkinson's disease is experiencing visual spatial difficulties, like depth perception issues, this could be challenging to navigate in the environment. If the person with Parkinson's disease also has an eye condition, like cataracts, then they will have trouble seeing colors of green, blue, or violet, which could further complicate their ability to see and navigate through that environment. In the bathroom example, it appears to have a no-rise shower entrance, which reduces the risk of freezing when trying to transfer into the shower. It has grab bars for safety and a handheld shower hose to help increase the thoroughness of cleaning without having to turn your body around to rinse off, which could increase your risk for falling. It has great contrast walls and free space under the sink to allow for an individual with a wheelchair to be able to pull up right under the sink for grooming tasks. It's hard to tell in this picture, but I would want to be sure that it has a mirror that is visible from a seated position, which might include having a mirror tilted at an angle. In the bathroom, the sink counter is clear and has very minimal items, which is a great strategy for someone who has Parkinson's disease. If you had a counter that was full of items, it could be hard to focus on the task at hand. You could be distracted by a hairdryer when you're trying to brush your teeth. So I would hope in this design there is areas for storage to help keep bathroom items that are not necessary for the immediate task out of the way, such as pull-ups, wipes, extra lotions, or anything else that could be distracting when trying to do your bathroom tasks. Next slide.
I would also offer that, if tremors are something that's being experienced and there's a bunch of bottles settled on the counter, that also can be a challenge too. So that is a good strategy to keep things clear. So as one considers changes in the home, we also have to consider taking a look at the equipment that might be needed or now or in the future. And in the best designs, we design things that are good for everyone. So That includes people who might be using a U-step walker, like pictured here, or a rolling shower chair, also pictured. Where possible, it is really nice to also consider aesthetics, how things look. You know, your home does not have to look medical, even if you have medical needs. Um, Cost-effective solutions sometimes are even the most affordable and the easiest way to get the accessibility you need. And you might not need a whole bathroom renovation to make it work for you, which is why it's helpful and important to consult with an occupational therapist who can help assess your needs now and in the future, along with these pieces of medical equipment. Next slide.
So finding the right contractor is kind of where I step in to talk about some of the pitfalls that you can come up against. Katie and Kirsten did an excellent presentation there, talking and highlighting the importance of getting a occupational therapist to be engaged early on. And part of what I'm going to talk about is the importance of having people surrounding you that you trust and that can help you and that are going to be there as a go-between between the OT as things progress, and also to help us as contractors so that we can make sure that we're finding the best solution for each individual in their home. Next slide, please. Some of the resources that are good to be familiarizing yourself with is a contractor search through the state of Oregon. If you're in the state of Oregon, Washington most likely has a similar system. I'm only licensed, our companies are only licensed in the state of Oregon. But one of the things about the CCB is, and that's the Construction Contractors Board, is it allows you to look up the business, find out how long they've been in business, who the owners are, different things that can protect you, the consumer. So there's different forms and different contract things that are really important that you have that for your protection, so that if there's a problem later on, then you've got some resources and other people that can help you with that. There's other online, reviews, occupational therapists like Katie and Kirsten. Other resources, through Parkinson's resources directly, they can help with getting you connected with people that are familiar with building not just construction, but age-in-place construction. Next slide, please. So this is on the Oregon CCB, and if you go to the Oregon Construction Contractors Board website, if you meet a contractor or you get a name, you can go to the license search area, which is circled right there at the top of the homepage. Next slide, please. You can type in the name, and sometimes the name of the company might be different than the business name. So there might be a couple of different searches, but you can always ask the contractor directly for their CCB number, and they should be able to provide you with that. That is usually the simplest way, when you just type in the CCB number, and that will auto-populate information about the business. Next slide, please. So this right here is my business, Home Care Medical. You can see there's an arrow to the side. So I also own a general construction company that I founded in 2004. That's why there's another business license there. So you can see down at the bottom in the box, you can look up complaint history, disciplinary history, administrative suspensions, things like that, to make sure that who you're hiring is going to be someone that you can trust and work with. Next slide, please. Another option is to go on, general review type websites like Yelp. There are Facebook groups and other support groups that can also assist. So you're able to get more information from people that have worked with the contractor in the past. Asking for referrals, general things like that are really, really important to make sure that who you have working on your home is someone that is familiar with those solutions. Next slide, please. So some of the things to look for in a contractor, similar to the OT, what sort of communication style? Is the person listening to what your needs are, or are they just telling you a bunch of information that maybe may or may not be relevant to your specific thing? So when we go into a home, we like to, obviously, if we have an occupational therapist, that's fantastic because it really helps us to look at the solutions that we can provide. Experience, there's a lot of people that know how to operate saws, know how to operate hammers, different things like that. I went and got the certified age in place specialist credentials just so I could familiarize myself with seeing things through a different lens. We've done custom construction for 21 years. But that's been mostly focused on someone that, we want to have this cabinet or we really like this tile, not so much the, we need this so that someone can remain in their home. And so it's an honor to be able to help with that. And one of the steps that I wanted to take is to make sure that I was educating myself as much as possible. And then also with, folks like Katie and Kirsten to go to them and to ask questions. And asking questions is really, really important because the contractors are not going to be, most contractors are not going to be familiar with each individual and the progression of a disease. And that's where that OT comes in. Similar to an architect that would design a house, the OT is going to be helping with that design and looking at the universal design aspect of that. Which can be a real benefit to the long-term viability of staying in your home. Another important thing we have at Home Care Medical, we have several different products that from stair lifts to Hoyer systems to ramps. But it's important to ask those questions from the consumer and from the OT, and not have someone that comes in and is trying to pressure someone. We are a zero pressure contractor. So it's really important to me personally that no one ever feels like they need to make a quick decision. And there are some outfits that will do that and they'll offer discounts if you sign up before 4 o'clock that day, and other aggressive in-home presentation things. And we want to be focused on the listening aspect, and other contractors that you seek out, we hope that they would be doing the same thing of not selling you something that they want to sell you, but actually listening to what you need and providing that solution. So that's kind of the hope with this whole process. Sales presentation. I despise the aggressive sales technique. I've never been that way. My business has grown through just word of mouth referrals, clients, architects, even neighbors a lot of times. So that I think is really important when you're looking at it, thinking this is a person that's going to be coming into our home and they're going to be doing work here for, it might be a short amount of time, might be a long amount of time. The hope is that with anything that's a progressive disease or aging in place, that you find and develop a relationship with someone that can be with you throughout that journey and to be able to assist, be familiar with the home, familiarize themselves with the home, and then be there consistently. So that that can also help with having the people around and again that circle of trust, having whether that's the kids or spouse or, trusted friend, but not ever being in a situation where you're feeling pressured to make a decision one way or the other. So looking at the building triangle, there's money, time, and quality. And the old adage is you get to choose two of those. So if you need something done fast, then sometimes it can be more expensive, not always. The quality aspect, the materials that you choose, there are a lot of different parts of the material choice that's really, really important, again, with the OT, to be communicating about, like Kirsten highlighted and Katie as well, with reflectivity in a space, the friction on the floor, the slipperiness of that, where grab bars would be located. Is there blocking for grab bars? All those different things that come into play when you're making these selections. Next slide, please. So I mentioned a little bit about the importance of having a family, trusted friend, occupational therapist, places like Parkinson's resources, where you can ask questions, you can use those resources as a sounding board for your own experience and kind of trying to understand more about what is going on with you personally, and then how that may or may not affect your life as you move forward. Is the salesperson, when they come into your home, are they being respectful of your home? Or when they're doing their job, are they walking in muddy work boots, or are they asking if a mask is wanted? Are they wearing shoe covers? Different things like that. Everyone has different economic backgrounds and economic situations, but I believe that everyone should be treated equally, and the home should be respected. So next slide, please.
And Matt, I'm going to jump in here just for a second. We had a question, and maybe both for you as well as for Kirsten and Katie. It said, given unpredictability of the disease progression, does it make sense to have an assessment if things are fine right now, to be prepared for issues down the road?
I defer to Kirsten on that first part.
I can speak to this. I think that is a great question, and I think it all boils down to what your goals are. If you are planning to try to have some home modifications done, I would consult an occupational therapist because of our unique understanding of disease progression. Even if you are not experiencing very many symptoms presently, if a contractor goes in there and looks at you and thinks, man, this person's functioning pretty well, and may make some assumptions that based on how you are presenting now, this is what the design should be. The risk of that is you may need an occupational therapist a year, 2 years, 3 years, 4 years down the road. And they'll come in and say, the design of your bathroom is actually causing some barriers for you now. And you're thinking, oh man, I just spent $40,000 on this bathroom. And so I would definitely consult an occupational therapist at all stages of home modifications.
And I love that question. I would add to that, it's never too early to plan. And there is something beautiful about being able to control your environment to help maintain your independence and reach your goals. It's completely achievable. And the more time you have to do it, potentially, you have cost savings built in, or you can spread out things with modifications over time, and you have many, many more options to help reach your goals, which for most everyone is to stay in their home. And I don't think there's a time where it's too soon to explore options, just so you know what's possible, because then you could have a plan A, B, and C, and maybe you never have to move on plan B and C, but at least you have the knowledge, because home modifications are complex. They're very complex and they take a lot of time. And when we're dealing with something like an unknown disease progression like we have with Parkinson's, it can be really powerful. This is something you can do. This is something you can control to give yourself the confidence and independence to be safe and stay at home.
Those are excellent points. I think another good part of that too, when you engage the occupational therapist early, is they can help to highlight, where simple things like putting in blocking and backing for future grab bars, other areas, of the home that you can do this work now, cover it, and then in the future you have these measurements, and you can, make sure that you're not having to do retrofit anchors and things like that you can actually go into solid wood. So, age in place solutions. Next slide, please. So ramps are for a walker, for a wheelchair, the versatility, looking at, different options based on where you live. Are you in a coastal area? Are you in an area that gets a lot of snow and ice? Thinking about maintenance, the costs of maintaining something. There are some beautiful wood options in certain areas that work really, really well. In other areas, they get kind of like a slime film on them, or you've got a roofing product or some other non-skid that's applied that has to be replaced from time to time. There are some steel ramps that are painted, and those also work really well. They do have the potential to rust. Some of them are not solid all the way through. They're like a mesh type thing. So depending on the size of the chair and the weight of the chair, it can sometimes feel not as sturdy as something that's a solid surface. This photo right here is an example of one of the products that we installed. It's a brand called Easy Access that we're a dealer installer for. It's an all aluminum product, and it has kind of I wouldn't call it a slip resistant non-skid type thing, but it does have some ribbing on there that is built into the aluminum when they cast it, so it provides a little bit of traction there. You can get all sorts of different ramps. You can hire carpenters to build a wood ramp if there's something that's kind of a shorter one, or you just need to get up a couple steps, especially in a garage setting where you're not out in the wet, area where it's slippery. But we've been really, really fortunate to team up with Easy Access and the products that we provide and the longevity of that. Next slide.
I wanted to kind of chime in. I think to emphasize what Matt is saying about the materials. I know I have been in many homes where just me walking in feels like I'm ice skating on slime because of the product that's being used. And if I feel like I'm falling trying to access your home, imagine how dangerous it could be for someone with a mobility impairment trying to get out of the home. So yeah, I think definitely it's important to look at the materials and where it's going to be positioned in terms of the elements.
Exactly. And I was also thinking that those are some great points that, in these pictures and these metal ramp pictures, some nice things about them are they have really sturdy guardrails on the base of the ramp where your feet are. They also have sturdy handrails. They are a consistent color. So the surface is the same, which can reduce, if you have a ramp that's custom built and it's changing between wood to metal or some odd transition, that can be an area where if you're experiencing freezing, you might get frozen or stuck trying to transition over that change in the floor texture. And another thing that I really like that I see in these pictures is this resting platform, which can be very helpful if you are having endurance issues and also is required by ADA, which Matt is the expert on specs on all of that. Yeah.
No, thank you, Katie. That one downside, because in the whole solutions based thing, one downside to the aluminum is that it can be very shiny at first, and so there can be some more glare. And depending on where it's situated, that can definitely be a challenge. Whereas the painted steel, is a more muted color, but it can be a little bit tricky to navigate too. So there's pros and cons to a lot of that stuff, but thinking about where you are in comfort level as a client, that and aesthetics too. I mean, you can see that these do have definitely a more institutional look. If you have the universal design where there's a lot of options with concrete paths that kind of blend into landscaping that get into more of an architectural thing. But if you're going for, these are all modular ramps. There's nothing that secures them permanently. They can be removed if needs change. You need a vertical platform lift, for example, if chair changes or something like that, they can be removed. So it's not a permanent part of your landscape. It's really a more pragmatic tool than it is something that you're going to have. Like, hey, come over and see my new ramp. So the resting platforms and the turning platforms. This is, again, where it goes back to the importance of the OT. There are platforms that are smaller, but with a mechanical chair, it can be really hard to navigate those and to make the turn to get back to the deck or the porch or down to the grade. Also trying to keep in mind, how does this impact the accessibility to your house for someone that does not need the ramp? Are you blocking the stairs? Are you making it where, like this one on the left right here, that's a 64-foot ramp that we did. There were some other folks that were having a hard time figuring it out. We ended up actually taking the excavator over there, and we excavated into the soil to create that first thing, because you can see how it steps up from the curb to the first part of the house, or the front yard, and then it steps up again to the front porch. So we were able to come up with a solution there, but it is important to have those rest areas, and every 30 feet minimum is the requirement for that. We try and keep the ramps as low as possible, ideally 1 inch of rise for every 12 inches of run. So it's a gradual slope that goes up, and that makes it easy if you have someone that's helping to assist with a manual chair pushing behind. And we'll talk about that too, of the caregiver. Next slide, please.
Can I add one more thing? Just from like a medical side, I had a unique situation where a patient was using a power wheelchair and needed more turning clearance to be able to pivot corners because of the measurements of the chair. And so the original plans for the ramp would not have accommodated that situation. And so what ended up happening, thankfully, was an occupational therapist was involved to look at the specs and then raise those concerns before that full ramp was installed, and then ending up not realizing you can't use it, paying, I think it was going to be close to $30,000 ramp that would have been completely unusable for that person.
That's an excellent point. We have actually, Kelly is here. Hello, Kelly. Another occupational therapist that we work with, and we're doing a project with a client right now, and she's been helping with, giving measurements of the wheelchairs and the turning radiuses and those sort of things, which is so important because, again, as contractors, you have so many different wheelchairs that you see, and some of those need to be able to turn and pivot, as Kirsten mentioned, in different ways. And there might be a power chair that can't make that turn. So knowing that ahead of time and asking those questions is really, really important. So thank you for bringing that up. Stair lifts. So stair chair lifts, you can do just a basic thing to get you from one level to the next. There's all sorts of bells and whistles you can get on them. The most basic ones have a simple lever. You are able to pivot the chair to get off at the top, and the handles come up. There's a lot of different manufacturers for them. We're a dealer for Harmar products, and they have this right here is called the SSL 600. It's a 350-pound capacity chair. It's rather wide and comfortable to sit on. Very intuitive controls, and it does have a seat belt as well. You can see that we added a grab bar at the base of this to assist the client in this application with being able to get off the chair and transition to the garage. So this is at the garage level and then going up on a split level home. So a lot of people are, looking at staying in their homes, but also other people too maybe are looking at moving to a different area and, thinking about what are the things you're going to look for as you age in place in that new environment. And steps, split level, houses. This is a split level house where all of the bathrooms are in the upstairs. So there's actually a second run of stairs that goes around that corner. So thinking about all of that is really, really important. There is maintenance costs. The batteries on these need to be replaced from time to time. The chair can go up and down with the battery. It does not need to be connected to power in the event of a power outage. But it has a trickle charge, and like anything, the batteries have to be replaced. So that's just something to think about too, is long-term maintenance of that. Next slide.
I think with stair chair lifts, one thing to remember is if you are getting a chairlift specifically just to get to a master bedroom upstairs, chairlifts can become difficult when your mobility starts to deteriorate. And the transfers onto stairlifts and the balance of staying on stairlifts can become a bit more precarious. And so before investing in a chairlift for something where the goal is just to get up to the master bedroom, I would highly recommend looking into, like, is there a way for the bedroom to be moved downstairs? Because that would really eliminate a lot of barriers to be able to access a bedroom. Now, in this instance, it's a split level. And so the chairlift is needed to be able to access the home, right? And so that's a whole different level of considerations. So again, I just kind of want to bring it back to what your goal is and how you want to divvy out your finances to be able to achieve that.
That's an excellent point, Kirsten. And for some conditions, the chairlift is really good. For others, it might make more sense to take those dollars and invest them into, either moving the bedroom to another part of the home or expanding a bathroom on that main level, because that is going to provide you with the greatest long-term solution. So while it can be hard emotionally to think about, over time not accessing one part of your house, the trade-off is that, as Katie spoke about, being empowered with being able to make solutions and choices about what tile you want or how you want your bathroom to be laid out, things like that, where you can kind of take ownership of that, versus putting it into something that might help for a year, but then have to just be removed, and then that money is gone. So,
And Matt, I have a question. How much did you say one of these units runs, like, approximately?
it can vary. I mean, if you have a mechanical arm at the bottom, so like, for example, here, this one, the track stops just short of where the door threshold is. If there was a walking condition where, someone could trip over it, there's a mechanical arm that has to fold up to get out of the space. So it's not, so it can range anywhere from 5,500 to 8,000 ish,
Yeah.
depending on the complexity of it. And obviously, when you get into curb stair lifts, that's a whole nother animal. There's also there's also vertical platform lifts as well, which are, you go on and it's like a small elevator, if you will.
Yes. So if you are in a split level or a house that has multiple stair lifts, you're talking about buying two of these versus buying one if you had just a single full flight staircase in your home. So these again are all the things a good contractor and a good occupational therapist can help you kind of deliberate about and talk about the pros and cons, because there really is never one good solution. There's usually two or three, and it's just about what your goals are and what you want to achieve.
For sure. Absolutely. So these are some other pictures of the chair lifts, and you can see at the bottom, the one on the right, that the chair is down at that space for the client to be able to easily get onto it. The units that we provide have remote controls, so you can call the chair up or call it down. They also fold up against the wall, so they come out about 10 to 12 inches off the back of the wall where it's located. So those are some different solutions, but for sure, thinking about the moving a bedroom or changing things around so that you can have everything on one level, if possible, is for sure the best way to go. Next slide, please. These Hoyer systems, so we're a dealer and installer for ETAC, which has the MoLift product. The one that's shown right here is called the Nomad, and one of the advantages of the Nomad is that it has a carabiner on top, and so you can actually disconnect that entire motor, not with a patient on it, of course, but you can disconnect the entire motor, move it to another area of the home, and use it for a track system over there. You can also, although it does get a little bit complex, but you can do a transfer from one rail system to another. But that's where, again, you'd want to have the OT involved in helping with how best to do that. The system that's installed right here on the right is called a box traverse system. It has 2 rails that mount on each wall, so it's very sturdy and steady. And then the bar in the center goes back and forth. And then within that, the trolley for the motor can go any direction. So you essentially have a system that can help with getting a transfer out of bed and into a chair, or out of bed and into a sitting chair, a recliner in another part of the room. One of the advantages of this system that I really like about it is that it reduces the patient jarring when you do transfers where someone is being pulled or twisted. It also reduces the risk of a caregiver injury. A lot of times it's the spouse is taking care of their husband or wife. And so trying to keep them healthy and make sure that both people can stay in the home is really, really important. And so this is one of those tools that can help with that. There are maintenance cost considerations. Depending on the number of lifts, things need to be rebuilt. There's batteries in these as well. There's a charging dock where it charges. But those are things to think about as well. In this particular situation, the client had to have 2 different caregivers, and we're able to reduce it down to 1. Obviously, that's an individual decision and something that should be made only with the OT helping out with that. But it's nice to be able to, provide that autonomy for the spouse and the spouse to be able to help each other as they work through this stuff. Next slide, please.
And can we go back to the lift really quickly?
Go ahead. Yes.
Us OTs, we always want to chat. I love these types of lifts, and this is something where if your experience of Parkinson's disease or any other medical condition, but this can happen with Parkinson's where it gets so difficult to move around that you would need something mechanical to help you get out of your chair, out of your bed, and that sort of thing. These types of ceiling lifts only require 1 caregiver, usually, depending on that caregiver's abilities. The types of lifts, which are typically called Hoyer lifts, they have 2 prongs that roll on the floor, and they have kind of an overhanging piece which lifts the client up. Those are typically covered by your insurance, and those require 2-person transfers. So if mobility needs are advanced, these would be some of the considerations that your occupational therapist could help you think about in making plans for what's going to work best for your family. I have worked with many different situations where 2 caregivers was not an option. And so we needed to consider something like the ceiling lift and making that accessible. Next slide.
I do have one thing to add. Again, OTs always have something to add. But
That's why we're doing this.
I know I cannot emphasize enough about these ceiling track lifts. I hands down would recommend seriously considering this if you have mobility issues that require you to use a mechanical lift. These mechanical lifts are meant to try to reduce the risk of the person needing the lift from being injured, but also the caregiver from actually trying to physically lift them from getting injured. But what I often find is caregivers that use the mechanical lifts end up with injuries, like pretty severe injuries from their shoulders of trying to pump a person up, or
And you're
trying
talking
to
about, I just want to clarify, you're talking about the
the
types that
mechanical,
insurance pays
the
for.
the one with the base and the So
Yeah.
what they tend to do is that you have to pump up the person using your arm and your own strength, and it will kind of lift them up. And it's a very jerky motion. Most people do not like being in those Hoyer lifts. And they end up having like shoulder pains, back pain of trying to move them around while they're hanging. These ceiling ones are so seamless. You press a button and they go up. And then just very little effort can move them to the seat that they need to go to. And it dramatically reduces the risk of caregiver injury. Um, and so that is very much so something I cannot emphasize enough is seriously considering one of these.
And the downside is, I mean, they are expensive, but you know, if you compare that to, well, what is an injury and what is, you know, if someone hurts themselves and then both people have to move to a different facility, that would be, I mean, that's the thing we're trying to avoid, you know, is to have those safe solutions. So as you can see, the picture on the left of your screen, that's one that we did recently. They had really nice crown molding, and so we talked to the client about how to set this up where it'd be kind of seamless and blend in. And I'm really proud of how that one turned out there. That is in the center slide. The motor there is called a MoLift Air. It's designed for taller ceilings, and instead of the entire apparatus dropping down like it does with the Nomad, it's just the strap that goes down. So that is it's a less expensive option. The downside to it is that it is a motor that is mounted to that track, and while it could be removed, it's not really designed to be removed once it's installed. And then on the right is another example of the Nomad that has a 4-point sling that's built into it. The Air does not have it has an option of what sling you could select. A lot of different sling options as well, from a shower sling to a toilet sling. So you could do the transfer, you know, as things are more advanced, you could do the transfer on the bed and then go into the shower rather than trying to do a bunch of different transfers in different areas, which increases that risk of injury. Next slide, please. Oh, one last thing on that slide before. The reason that we have, so that in the center one, that's when we're doing our weight test. And so we test the track system and the lifting mechanism and everything to its safe working load. So on these, the safe working load is 450 pounds. So what we have right there is 450 pounds. And we don't use the client's sling for that. Of course, we have our own, things that we bring into the home, and then do our testing with that. So I just wanted to explain what was going on in that photo. And that's me in there, and I'm taking notes about the different heights that things are before, after, and then during the test. Bath conversions. This is so we're a Best Bath dealer. There's a lot of different options out there as far as showers go. I really like the Best Bath product because it's kind of built like a boat. It's got a heavy plywood and a gel coat to it. You can put grab bars wherever you want. It's got the backing built into it. These are really nice. Your standard 5-foot tub that you see in the majority of homes. A lot of them are a bathtub, and it can get difficult to lift your leg up over the top of the bath. So we can take that existing opening, take out that tub, and then put in one of these modular units. And usually it's about a 2-day process. So it's pretty quick, and it's a nice, really nice product. Feels good. There's a lot of different options for finish. This is a faux subway tile, but there's no grout, so you don't have anything you have to maintain as far as keeping it clean. Just a simple washcloth, wipe down with some mild detergent is all you need for keeping it clean. This one has a built-in seat. We can do some other options. I'll show you. Next slide, please. Oh, I'm sorry. This is a different one. Kirsten, you want to take on this one?
I just want to mention, Matt, on the last slide, the type of prefab, yeah, shower that is easy to maintain. Maintenance is definitely something to consider because it's also something you have to live with in your home. And so having something that's easily cleanable is definitely a plus. Okay,
Yes.
Mike.
And
Yeah, go ahead.
actually, on this one right here, there still is a small curb at the base. There are
Yes.
options you can get that are a roll-in one, but the thing that I always like to make sure people know when they're thinking about getting a roll-in chair, and sometimes that's the only option that there is, but there's a sacrificial dam that has to be replaced, a rubber dam that's pliable where the chair rolls over it, making sure that it's not too steep, and then also they're going to have water that needs to be cleaned up outside of the shower after bathing if you're transferring the entire chair, back out. If it's a roll-in chair, so thinking about those maintenance aspects, having a simple mop to clean stuff up, clean up water, is really important. But those are all things to think about again as you're looking at that long term. Does it work now to have a short threshold, and then later maybe you need something that is more robust or different solutions. So next slide, please.
Okay,
One
Matt,
thing,
we've used the term blocking and backing. So as I'm switching, I wonder if you can briefly explain what those are.
Yeah. So one of the things about well, this is a perfect slide for this actually. So if you look at the toilet, on each side of the toilet, there's grab bars that are to assist with standing up or sitting down, that sort of thing. Those are mounted to the wall, and where those are mounted to the wall, it's really important that there's solid structure that's gonna make sure that that is supported when you put weight on it. So when we were talking earlier about putting in blocking now, if you're doing a bathroom renovation or something like that, it's usually a 2x10, which is an inch and a half thick lumber that you'd see at a lumber yard or big box store. Putting that in the wall, then that allows your screws to go through the drywall or through the tile and get into that backing. So when you do a custom tile shower, you want to really, or an acrylic shower that has a thin wall, you want to really be thinking about where those blocks are going to be for that future grab bar installation.
That's an excellent description of what it looks like. I am asking Kirsten to see if she can quickly find a picture of blocking on the internet and post it in the chat so you can see a little bit more in depth about what we mean when we say blocking for grab bars, which would be something that's under the drywall or under the wall surface. Um, we have here a few pictures. We have a bathroom that has clearly not been updated and is just a bathtub. And then we have a couple options of some bathrooms that have had some modifications to them. And you'll notice that we've spent a lot of time thinking and talking about bathrooms and entrances to homes because these are the two areas in which most folks experience difficulty. If you're having any shuffling of gait, if you're having any difficulty with your mobility, these are typically where your challenges will pop up first. And usually these are the most important places that you've got to be able to access. So that's why part of the reason why we're spending so much time on these areas of the home. There, we have some kitchen slides coming later. So if that is your interest, we will get to that. But I'd like to propose, what a good contractor occupational therapist conversation might look like if we are starting with this bathroom on the farthest left with the green tile and just the bathtub. And let's say we are working with a client who's got a shuffling gait, is now using would need to use a shower chair if they were able to, you know, what the conversation might look like as we start to think about modifying this bathroom to support someone with Parkinson's disease who has some mobility challenges. So I'd like to ask Kirsten and Matt, maybe what are some of your initial thoughts that you might begin to recommend in a smaller bathroom like this?
so from a functional standpoint, I would have the client go in and demonstrate what they are currently doing, getting on and off the toilet, in and out of the shower, and accessing the sink for grooming. During that, we kind of point out this seems like an area that is challenging or a safety risk, or there may be environmental changes that can make the task easier for you. I would float some ideas of having maybe a walk-in shower or a flooring that is not so busy. That if someone has depth perception problems, may have difficulty navigating that flooring, or just needing a higher toilet. And at that point, as we're talking about it, the goal is to be more safe in the bathroom. Usually that's when the contractor would come in and we'd be talking as a group of like what is needed in this environment. And on Matt's side, I've worked with him in many bathrooms, but he is able to tell us structurally what is capable in this situation.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, one thing that I think can happen that can help a lot is just simply switching the door orientation so it swings out into the hallway rather than into the bathroom. We have one that is in design right now, and we're actually going to utilize that outswing door as almost a privacy thing to separate the front part of the house. This is a client that is more confined to the living area. That's where her bedroom is now. But so that there's some benefits to changing those things where it doesn't even involve any real structural change. You're just simply taking off the existing door that you have and turning it around and reinstalling it. That also, the looking at this shower or tub, I should say, there's not there aren't many grab bars, and with the low tile surface and the toilet right there, I could see a lot of different potential fall risks. And so, as Kirsten pointed out, like, thinking about where, when you're trying to get up from the toilet or you're trying to get in and out of the shower, where do you naturally reach for to try and stabilize yourself, and then work with the contractor and the OT to make sure that you're putting in that blocking. And I see in the chat there that's a great picture. To put in the blocking, and sometimes it's excuse me, it's horizontal like that, and other times it's vertical. So for a vertical bar. So anyway.
So here is a side by side of a before and after of a smaller bathroom area. You can kind of see in the before picture, there's a little caddy for storing supplies, which is a little bit in the walkway. And if you had something like a U-step walker, would not necessarily be able to fit in that space. You can also see that the door is swinging inward, like Matt mentioned, and that's something that's a very easy, affordable fix that would give much more space for accessing the toilet and turning with something like a U-step walker, for example. And the change in the difference from a stepping over type of tub to something that is a low barrier, which kind of eliminates that step. My criticism for if this was a home and with a client with Parkinson's disease would be, we would really want to think pretty smartly about our transitions and our thresholds. There's a very clear black border. There's a very clear difference between the gray flooring and the white bath. And that would be something we would want to workshop and consider, individually for the specific person, how is this going to be affect their mobility?
The other thing I would probably want to see more is contrast between like the sink counter and the flooring. Because with vision changes or cognitive changes, especially with the visual spatial, that contrast could really help with function.
And we always want to talk about lighting. You can leave the slide here. This is perfect. We can talk about lighting anywhere. Lighting is the most affordable thing that you can do in your home to help make things more accessible. Many of our homes are not lit well, and that really does contribute to, we can't see where our things are, and, it's the shadows make it more difficult, or it's easier to trip that way. So here's these three spaces are lit very beautifully because they provide enough light for tasks, which is maybe at the sink and grooming, and they also have lighting. Can't tell exactly, but I love to see a light in a shower because that does make it easier to clean and see everything, and it also makes it easier on your caregiver if you are a person who needs support in that way.
Yeah, and so these three pictures are three of the projects that we've done. The two on the left are custom tile showers. The one on the far left there, you can see from sitting down on the bench, the way that we had the plumber install the valve was so that the client could sit and be able to turn on the valve and adjust the temperature without getting blasted in the face with water, of course. So you've got the handheld there with a diverter. It just makes it a lot safer. We did the same thing on the one on the far right. That's a best bath unit again with a fold down seat that's in there. And we have those two things set up again for client comfort. And a lot of times when you get in the shower and you're reaching forward and losing your balance, that's where you've got that increased fall risk. And so trying to help with the transfer into the space and then the client being able to remain seated if desired. That's really what we're going for with that. The one in the center is a custom glass enclosure that the client actually helped with the design on this. And they wanted to have a custom tile, like a very nice bathroom. And it was small enough that making sure that the chair was able to navigate was going to be a little tricky. And so they said, well, what about doing like a French door corner and to allow the chair to go in? So we did that, and it really turned out great and works really well for the client. So it's really neat to have that collaboration, you know. So next slide, please.
So here are the kitchen examples that I mentioned. This slide and the next will have some photos of some kitchen options. And I'm hoping you're getting the theme, which is accessible homes can look very nice and they do not need to be medical looking, but they should be accessible for many people at many different stages of mobility. This is good for everyone from grandkids to somebody in a wheelchair. This before kitchen is a traditional kitchen. The after kitchen has some unique features like multi-height counters and some roll-in, like a little cubby where you could, if you were needing a wheelchair, you could potentially roll in and use that surface as a counter. It also has a pretty good visual contrast between the wall color and the countertop color. The counter color and the flooring color are a little bit similar, so that might be hard if there are some visual or some cognitive deficits. Um, but those are just some features that stick out to me when I take a look at these photos. Kirsten and Matt, anything else to add about these two?
I see before you can see there's just that one main light with a few kind of lighting inserts. But in the after, you can see there is a lot of there's a lot more improved lighting targeted at workstations. I do see that the floor is a little busy. I feel like that potentially could be a problem. However, it's not as busy as that bathroom one. And overall, I like this because there's multiple different workstations for different levels of mobility.
And very open, clear, wide walkways, which allow for lots of space for any type of mobility device to get through if those are needed. Next slide. So here are some other options that can help make a kitchen much more accessible. In the first photo, you see more pull-out style cabinetry, which is great for any mobility challenge and can make things a lot more accessible. I'm also happy to note that these types of things are becoming more popular writ large. So between the roll-in showers and these types of kitchen modifications, these also can increase the value of your home, which is something you always want to consider. You know, this is not just nice for you, but this is also nice for the future. In the middle picture, that's an oven with a more microwave style opening. This is actually safer for all of us. This causes less burns than the traditional style oven. So there are many options for appliances that might meet particular mobility needs. And I included it just to kind of percolate, get the ideas simmering about the different types of features that one might look for to make your home more accessible and have much more longevity throughout it. And then the last photo is another photo of like pull-out drawers, which are a lot easier than sifting through some more older style cabinet options for storage.
The
That's all. Go
oh,
ahead.
I was going to say that there's a product called Rev-A-Shelf, REV-A-shelf, and I don't know if the one on the far left is a Rev-A-Shelf product line or not, but one of the nice things is there's a lot of stuff you can do to retrofit your existing cabinetry. You don't have to tear out your kitchen. You can just find ways of making it more accessible and getting into even like, for example, the pantry there on the left, that perhaps in the past was a swinging door and they just changed it and made it a pull out. So you can go wheel up from the side, from either side sometimes, and be able to get your products out, which, as Katie mentioned, I mean, that's better for everyone. I mean, the lazy
Mhm.
Susans and things like that, where you're down shuffling around, you know, it's really challenging for anyone of any, you know, mobility level. So, yeah, these are great.
One thing
Yes.
to when I see these modifications in my brain, I figure like I kind of try to vision um what's the impact of just having something simple as a pull-out shelf. And so just to kind of describe to give you guys kind of a picture, the old kind of style shelving is where you open it up and you got to crawl down and you got to pull things out. And that's actually pretty hard for everybody, right? And so, and you add, symptoms of Parkinson's disease, it could really mean if you're crawling on the ground and trying to pull something out, it could mean you end up in the hospital because you hurt yourself. And so something as simple as this, where you could hold on to the counter, pull out the shelf and get what you need, could really mean that you save a lot of pain and injury from trying to do something the way you have done it for years. One thing to kind of call out, there is an organization, if you are in the Portland metro area or visiting the Portland metro area, called Community Vision. And they have an amazing adaptive kitchen that you can go and explore and try different things. Now, some of their things that they have installed are really, really high tech. Like they have cabinets up above that you can press a button and it will move the whole cabinet down to be within reach. That can be a little bit excessive than what some people need. But they do also show Rev-A-Shelf. They show the pull-out drawers. You can actually go and interact with that environment to understand how that could potentially improve how you may function in your home, in your kitchen.
I was just reading some of the comments here on the side, and Joan and Libby, and who else? Nancy down here. We're talking about architects and landscape and that kind of universal design thing. And I think that, you know, as we talked about earlier, we've got the contractor perspective, we've got the OT, but when it comes into something that's, you know, a more integrated project or something that's going to require structural changes, having a contractor that works with an architect on projects, or sourcing that architect separately and bringing them into that conversation is really important, because they can offer a lot of really other good ideas that can be explored. And I think that, you know, if there's anything to like check one box of the whole presentation, it's that we really want to encourage everyone to be communicating and to be looking and exploring all these ideas, because there's not going to be one solution for everyone. There's going to be a lot of different ones along the way. And so that communication, I think, is really, really important.
Absolutely. That brings us to our last slide before we get to our questions. So thank you all for your patience as we have gone through this information. And the last thing that Kirsten and I want to talk about is funding options. Home modifications don't have to be, but often are expensive. There are many, many community organizations that offer support. Some are income-based and some are not. And so here we've included a list of options to consider. If you happen to be a person who is on Medicaid, and you own or don't own your house, it's currently still funded, a Medicaid waiver program where these home modifications, especially if you are mobility challenged and wheelchair bound, Medicaid will pay for bathroom modifications and ramps because it is more cost effective to allow people to remain in their homes safely than paying for someone to be institutionalized. So this is actually a part of some of our community members' healthcare is getting support with these modifications so they can remain in their home. In Oregon and the Portland metro area, we have Refit and Rebuilding Together, which are actually national organizations that have many chapters across the states. We also have an organization called Unlimited Choices and Home Access Grant, which are application-based programs. Habitat for Humanity has done some things with home modifications, but that is certainly it's not as common for these types of things we've been talking about today. And then there are options for low interest loans through the USDA Rural Development Section 504 grants. If you are a service member, a military service member, or a family member of a military service member that is Veterans Association service qualified, you may also qualify for their home modification support program. And then we always highly recommend speaking to a fiduciary to see if a reverse mortgage or other financing options, if you can leverage the value of your home to allow you to remain there. And even though it's expensive, sometimes it is still much more affordable than assisted living or independent living or moving, which many people do not wish to do. It can still be the most cost-effective solution for you. So all that is to say, your experts that you would lean on for these things, your occupational therapist and your contractor, might know of some funding resources or directions to point you for support if financially these home modifications are challenging to access.
I think that's excellent. I think also, to ask the trade professionals you're engaging with as well. We offer veteran discounts at Home Care Medical. There's a lot of different options where people can assist and have some flexibility on pricing in different arenas. Never hurts to ask, so.
I have one more thing to add is oftentimes I've been able to help clients get grants for home modification and accessibility based on organizations that help support whatever disease, whether it be Parkinson's disease, but maybe you have another kind of comorbidity that might also have an organization that provides funding for home modifications. Really, it's just getting out there and talking to the experts, or just sometimes just going on Google and saying Parkinson's disease home modification grants or something like that. A lot pop up, a lot change. And so like some of these may in a year be retired, but you might be able to find something different where the funding kind of gets reallocated.
Wonderful. Well, thank you so much for the presentation. What I'm going to do is stop recording now, and then we can take some time here for questions.